We'll move on to the next speaker in this theme session of chronic disease management, Mr. Rajabnar, Chief Executive International and Chief Innovation and Marketing Officer, Humana Incorporation. So I request you to kindly stick to the time. We are already short of 30 minutes. Please.
Thank you. Is there any technology on this? Terrific. Thank you. When I heard the presentation which Dr. Sen was making, I could clearly say about 80 to 90% of it is immediately applicable. It felt like almost like a US presentation that was being made here. Okay, I have actually one more mic here I'm wearing. Okay. So a couple of things. First, I wanted to start off with a couple of disclaimers. I'm not from the medical profession. I'm a banker, and I'm a consumer marketer. So I know nothing about health and medicine profession and all these good things. The second thing is I'm not too familiar with the Indian market. I have left this country quite some time back. And what I was actually asked to speak was in the context of the US. So as most of you would have read enough about the US healthcare system, it is actually not a system. It's so badly broken that you can hardly call it as a system. The percentage of the GDP which is spent on the health sector is in the high teens. It's the highest in the world. But there are no commensurate outcomes that justify that level of investment on one level. And when the cost of the healthcare system is already so high, the rate at which it is growing from here is absolutely scaring. The system cannot sustain itself, and we are headed to a complete train wreck. Now, against that background, the entire health ecosystem reform that had started a couple of years back with the Obamacare and all that good stuff, it started as a health care reform, but quickly dwindled down to health insurance reform because you needed to find some scapegoat somewhere in the whole system. The insurance companies typically make about less than 3.5% net margin, but that's where the entire, debate has somehow got into. So when it came out, and I represent a health insurance company, it's a Fortune 500 company called Humana. So we said, along with other insurance companies, that we have to take the problem into our hands and then see how we can solve it. We are sort of in the middle of the ecosystem where right now there is some kind of a tug of war. It's a three-way tug of war between the payers, the providers, and the patients. And it's all a cost-shifting exercise without really the costs being taken out of the system. So we said, how can we actually help and enable the costs from the health system to be taken out? And that's where actually we started our efforts over the last few months very seriously. So if you look at a very high level, we said there are three main areas of technology leverage that would be possible as it pertains to actually treating patients. One is in terms of consulting, one is in monitoring, and one is in complying. So I'll just touch upon each one of these in a couple of minutes. So when you look at consulting, there is enough amount of communication which is there already on telepresence, call it telemedicine, telehealth. It's being called in various names. A lot of companies are trying out this entire telepresence exercise, including, I guess, my colleague out here from United Healthcare. With Cisco, I guess you have partnered with and started some pilots both for the rural areas as well as for the urban areas, and I think that's well known, I guess. But what is surprising and shocking is, in spite of the fact it is so self-evident that it should be saving costs, it has not gained commercial momentum yet. Either the solution is not very intuitive, easy, cost-effective, and clear enough in terms of educating the entire participants, whether it is on the doctor's side, the doctor assistants, or the patients themselves. I would have thought, given the problems and the context that we have, that this would have been really taken roots by now, which it hasn't really happened. The second area is in terms of monitoring, which is where there is a much higher level of momentum that's happening. So remote monitoring, like for example, for my company, we have been doing a partnership with Intel and with GE Health, and we took one of the most expensive disease conditions, which is, I guess, congestive heart failure. And in about 2,000 homes, we installed those devices and then try to monitor their biometrics and see if there is any fluctuation. Then the algorithms will tell you something is going wrong, and quickly the alerts are sent, and the intervention happens before an emergency actually takes place. And we see that the remote health monitoring or remote monitoring in total, this is really taking a significant momentum right now. It's really establishing pretty quickly, and the scaling is happening very rapidly. And what we also find is it's not just in the context of only health. This is where I think the consumer marketeer in me comes out. When you're installing a device in people's homes, they are not wanting to just look at it only for their health purpose or for monitoring of a particular condition only. They want a much holistic solution for their life. So there are some combinations of home security, like I don't know what you call them here. There its example is ADT. So if there is an intruder into your home, there is an alert system that happens. So that same system is actually now getting into medical monitoring, and whether the patient is or the member is actually standing up or has fallen down, and if the person has fallen down, can an alert be sent and so on. So these are integrated monitoring solutions. So that's basically the point I'm trying to drive at. While they have started as solutions from a medical perspective, they are becoming much more broader and all-encompassing. And we have been doing a few pilots for our company. On the compliance side, there were quite a few interesting experiments that we have been doing, starting with the medication. You would have all heard about these pill boxes, and Proteus Biomed has got ingestible chips that are put in the tablets. I think they're in partnership with Novartis, and some pilots are going on that side, which is pretty fascinating. And the tablets which have got the ingestible chip is actually not only monitoring the adherence to the drug being taken or not, and at what time, from what batch is that particular tablet, and from which factory it has been produced, and when it has been digested, what levels of release of that medication has happened, etc. I think it was an amazing amount of stuff that they were doing. Again, broadening the application, when we have seen what they could actually do beyond, these could also monitor a whole bunch of internal biometrics that are very useful when the doctor is looking at this. So that's on one side. Glow caps and pill boxes, that's one thing which we have also started doing in conjunction with a company called Discovery of South Africa, and launched those in the US on a very limited scale. Not a huge amount of acceptance right now because somebody has to bear the cost. So whenever you're putting some new cost into the system, adding it, everyone wants somebody else to pay. And the long-term benefit which you will actually see once the concept takes root is something which nobody is willing to wait. So that's where, again, we are trying to do some seeding of the concepts and see how we can get some scalability. Things like adverse interaction alerts, basically leveraging the mobile phone capabilities. I think I keep saying that with the evolution of the human beings, they have now developed a new organ called the mobile phone. And one look at my son, you will know that mobile phone has become an integral part of the body. Now, very limited amount of the functionality of what a mobile phone can do is being leveraged right now. Curiously, in relatively lesser important areas, you would say, like for movies or movie ticket bookings or movie premieres, the way they are being used is amazing. The way the mobile phones are being used as a channel to reach the consumer and do things. And while about medical reminders or things like appointment setting and reordering of your medications and the monitoring of your biometrics, all these things could be done with a smartphone. To Dr. Sen's point earlier, we are seeing very little amount of commercially viable concepts that are coming out that are being presented to either the health insurance companies who actually control anyway the finances of the whole system. And that's an area which we have been actually struggling a little bit and partnering with folks like the MIT Media Labs and some of the other universities to get these concepts out. But again, all these are in a very, very nascent scenario. We have done also a pilot in the area of testing for diabetes amongst small children. This is a device called Digit. And this is in partnership with the company Bayer, where each time the kid has to poke his skin, which is a painful thing for a child. For anyone, it is painful, more so for a kid. There is a lot of resistance, and pain avoidance is what the child seeks. So, to motivate him or her to actually do the testing, we have created an entire ecosystem around a small device. Firstly, it looks like a toy rather than some injection kind of a thing. And each time the kid pierces it, the kid gets some points, some reward points. And these reward points will automatically go to the child's account, and the child can unlock a lot of virtual gifts in some of the games that they actually play using either PlayStation or Nintendo or some such devices. And that's something which we had done, and what we found is that, curiously, at one level it feels a little sad that you're literally kidding these children and making them do it, and they enthusiastically piercing themselves. But on the other hand, the adherence component really dramatically shoots up, and it's almost like 30-35% increases is what we have seen, which is fairly substantial. But the only problem is that the kid loses the interest fairly quickly once it takes once a kid gets used to that game. So we need to constantly keep sustaining the interest of the child by creating new games and new motivating factors so that the kid is continuously engaged and continues to do the daily testing as necessary in his case of diabetes. Remote guidance is something which we have recently tried. And what we're trying to do is, and what I'm trying to share here is not those things which are anyway well known, but some of those which are a little bit towards the frontier. Some of them might sound a little bit fluffy, and probably some of them are indeed fluffy, but we are trying to learn what changes the consumer behavior and what really helps move the needle in their behavior. For example, in the case of childhood obesity, which is really a huge epidemic right now in the US, with almost 2/3 of all the children being overweight. And it's a key area of focus for right from the First Lady to a whole bunch of organizations out there. What we're trying to do is partner with Microsoft and with a company called Ubisoft and creating a series of games leveraging the Kinect platform of Microsoft. So what this does is, I hope all of you are familiar with Kinect, the cameras which will capture your body position. It has got facial recognition. So when you come in front of your TV screen, which is linked to your Xbox and Kinect, it knows that it is you and it's not somebody else. And then we created this game called Your Shape. And so the kid is actually, when he comes in and starts the game, it makes the kid go through a lot of routines, and the kid keeps getting a lot of virtual points, and it's highly engaging. Last year, we have sold 1.5 million copies of this game. That was the highest selling game, and normally you would not expect a health-related game to be a top seller, but actually on the Xbox Kinect platform, it was a health game called Your Shape, which was a top seller. And this year, we have just launched the next version of it on the 8th of November. And initial response has been fantastic. So this is a very unusual way of deploying, where we can get to know whether the child is actually participating in the activity, is he or she exercising, what is the level of activity, and if the kid is not doing something properly, you can really intervene. We are not into the intervening phase at this point in time, but we are actually developing the next phase to try and see if something is going wrong, how we can. And we were looking at it as an opportunity for physiotherapy. So because we can download the program to the patient, so the patient at his home or her home can do this stuff. So if the leg is not being lifted adequately, the virtual coach will actually compare the required height of lifting versus the actual, and immediately when there's a difference, it starts telling, no, you have to lift your leg up by 2 inches more, hold in that position for 2 minutes, count 1, 2, 3. It's highly engaging. It almost feels very real. And so we went into things like, we're getting into physiotherapy through the usage of Microsoft Kinect kind of platforms. As also things like right now we have got 3 sets of games, one for hyper tension. The second one is for childhood obesity, and the third one is for elder mobility. So this is basically for seniors who get very little movement in total, to give some very thoughtful movements which are less prone to falls or injuries. So those are the kind of things that we are doing. Something fell off. Okay. On the other hand, a lot of responsibility has to also be placed with the consumer themselves. Right now, consumers don't seem to have a whole bunch of their skin in the game. If they fall sick, somebody else is paying for it, and the doctors are happy because of either defensive medicine practice, because of the tort law that we have got out there, where there is over-testing, there is a ton of money which is spent, there is too much of wastage. And because the customer most often does not feel the pain himself or herself, it's important to get them involved and also make them responsible for their own lifestyles, which are contributing a lot to these chronic conditions. And starting off with simple awareness or literacy. It's amazing and astounding how many people have no clue about what their current lifestyle is. They think I'm okay. I'll just give you one simple example. One of our employees in my company, he was about close to 400 pounds. And he participated in this contest on the TV called Biggest Loser, and he ended up winning it. And he was actually telling us that when he was at close to 400 pounds, he didn't think that he was obese. He thought he was slightly overweight. You know, the perceptions of people that they have got about themselves is absolutely amazing. Probably it's part of the survival instinct that leads you to believe about yourself things that are not really reflecting the reality, but your own defensive way of approaching stuff. So one of the things is, how can we build awareness in people about what they are, how they are, and what is the state of health. So we came up with a series of devices or enablements that will really help consumers really realize that. One of which, for example, is, I don't know how many of you are geeky enough to get into Second Life. Just a show of hands. Not bad, actually, I expected far lesser. So it is like a second life where the person actually is living in that artificial city, in the artificial world, and they keep seeing images of themselves, and we call it Humanaville. And they start learning a lot, they keep educating a lot about, they keep getting educated a lot about various conditions. And depending on how much the information they give us, we feed it back intelligently through some algorithms that will change the landscape for them in a way that is most suitable for them and most educative for them. On the motivation side, and also one more thing on the Humanaville itself is we have got a very neat module. We put the individual, and we say, okay, let's keep adding 10 pounds to you. So we take a picture of the individual, and it keeps bloating, bloating, bloating. So we add about 400 pounds. And then we say, now, like the Dutch auction, keep pulling it back and just stop where you think you are right now. And invariably, they go way past where they are, and then they show a much thinner version of themselves. And then we say, no, this is not what you are. You're really this. And when they compare it, I think the revelation is pretty fascinating. We also created something called Vitality Age, which tells you what is your really fitness age, or vitality age as we call it, compared to your chronological age. And then we sort of give some guidance on how they actually reduce their vitality age. And we did this first test in New York with the New York Stock Exchange, the traders and the brokers. And it was fascinating. They don't get much of a movement. They're all sitting on the trading floors, and they make lots of money. So they bloat, they eat, there's a lot of tension and all that good stuff. So one of the most horrible lifestyles anyone can have. So we actually ran these things past those people. And it was fantastic kind of results. Something which you would really like to see, go much broader, and which is exactly what we're trying to do. On the motivational side, which is another one, everyone knows what is good for them, but they don't do those. And everyone knows what is bad for them, but they continue to go ahead and do that. Thank you. So we came up with this theme of how do you make healthy things fun and fun things healthy. And one of the things we are trying to do is to, just like in a credit card today, when you go and swipe your credit card, you get points, and your spending might actually be influenced. And I lived in credit card industry for 15 years, so I know how you can influence, understand the behavior of the consumers' mindset, and influence their behavior. So we're trying to deploy those in the health space to help consumers do what is good, genuinely good for them. Social media and peer groups are extremely critical, and we have a number of initiatives on those as well that we have launched. In terms of enabling people to do healthy things and to keep themselves fit or take care of them if they have a chronic condition at home, we are heavily leveraging the mobile phone. And also, rather than putting a new device in people's home, to try and see how we can leverage the existing devices that are already there. An example is cable box. So we are partnering with one of the cable companies there to actually help people manage their routines and everything so that we don't have to invest anything more on the infrastructure. At workplace, what can we do? A whole bunch of things. We have been partnering together with the World Economic Forum and World Health Organization, an inventory of things that people can do at the workplace and what the employers can do for their employees. We also have got on the lifestyle changes side on the exercise, nutrition, and social level, not going to it for lack of time. But just suffice to say that as an insurance company, it might come as a little bit of a surprise to most of you that we are now getting into the business of bicycles. So we are creating health bikes. These are not bikes which are there in the gym, but these are regular bikes which go from point A to point B. And we call it Humana Urban Fit. It has got a whole bunch of electronics. When you sit on it, it measures your weight. You hold the handle, it measures your oxygen content in the blood, your pulse rate, and a whole bunch of things. It measures your effort, plots your effort against your biometric response, sees if it is within the acceptable range, and it rewards you for good performance and the extent of effort you are putting, and sort of build a complete ecosystem that supports you through rewards, through devices, through social network, and trying to get all those things together. And I'll just stop on that. If anyone have any questions later, I'll be very happy to answer. But in the interest of time and respecting next folks, I'll stop there. Thank you very much.